everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Female Film Critics Panel. And this is the show where we like to talk with awesome female content creators, critics, journalists. And today it's very fun. We have a local, what's your actual, what do you call your actual position? Podcast host?
I'm a podcast producer, I'm a co-host, and a semi-professional nerd.
I love that, yes. Yeah. We're a local semi-professional nerd. We have KellieAnn Halvorsen here, and thank you so much, KellieAnn, for coming on and talking with us.
I'm with KSL Podcast and do a little stuff for church news and just a big nerd. Happy to join you.
Yeah. So this is your first time on our show. So we'd like to get to know you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about how you got started. How did you first develop your love of film?
Ooh, I think I've always loved film. I've always been in theatrical productions. I've always loved storytelling, an avid reader. And kind of when I returned back to school, and I realized this is something I wanted to do. I wanted to do something to participate in good storytelling and to bring people together in that way and open up different people's minds and everything. And I thought, when I went back to school, I'd actually end up at Warner Brothers. I went down and toured a few times. I was backstage with some of the executives from DC Comics, and they really liked my work. But they're like, I need to specialize in Utah for a few years before I come down to work with them at Warner Brothers. And I'm really glad I did that because I was able to move from a publishing job into producing the movie show for KSL News Radio.
So you've been working in publishing, and then you went back to school because you wanted to.
I'm actually a massage therapist. I'm a massage therapist. We're actually in my massage spa office right now. You can see some of my stuff going on there. And so when I went back to school, I thought I'd become a physical therapist, realized I didn't want to do the math. I'm really good at communicating. I did a lot of film production and stuff at school, as well as audio and photography and things like that. And so I'm like, okay, I want to go work for Warner Brothers. What can I do?
Why Warner Brothers? Why in particular Warner Brothers?
Batman. I have always loved the Warner Brothers, animators. I grew up on a lot of the classic films. The whole time down there at the Warner Studios, I'm like, this is where they filmed You Hello Dolly. I was just so excited for it. So when I came back to Utah after that trip, I moved from my publishing job, and I reached out to someone I knew at KSL who was like, well, they are doing the movie show producer. They're hiring a new one, but it's really part-time. Well, I have my massage. So I was able to pick up part-time and keep, be able to exist. And eventually I've been at KSL for about 5.5 years now. I was able to reach out and do more nerdy stuff. I was able to bring people in from FanX. I was able to talk to celebrities. I was able to start going to movie reviews and everything like that. And so now I get to do this. But, my co-host, Andy Farnsworth, he actually hosts the movie show. So he has to see everything. I get to pick and choose, which is fantastic. And then I like to bring in local events and artists as well. So it's not just movie reviews, but we had a really fun event back in January I helped with called JanuArty. And I got to talk to people who, an animator who did Moses on Prince of Egypt. I get to talk to really amazing people. So it's not just film that I do. I consider myself a storytelling advocate. So I'm going to talk to artists. I'm going to talk to cosplayers. I'm going to talk to writers. And I get to pick and choose. So I don't have to go to every movie.
Yeah. So when you got the job at KSL, had you had any experience in radio, or was it totally new for you?
It's weird because it wasn't necessarily radio I had the experience with. It was theater and big productions like that. And I had done a lot of work at college, particularly at Slick, where I'd done a lot of audio production and things like that. So I came in with that as my example, my samples. You do kind of a test where you get to listen to a show and you do kind of, what do you want to say about it? How would you edit this? What's your story? And I had already really impressed Amanda Dixon, who was an instructor with me at the University of Utah. And so she really vouched for me. So I was able to jump straight in. I sat down with Doug Wright and Steve Sales. I was able to help them launch their movie show club, which is now their movie show Friends, and was really able to help build their show. But, when COVID hit, I needed something more full time. So that's when I moved over completely to podcast. So I left the movie show. Now I host Fan Effect with Andy, which is the nerdy one we do like twice a month, which we're going to turn this into. So yay.
Yeah.
And then I do the Church News podcast and Relentlessly Resilient. So
how did you get the idea to do the Fan Effect? How did that all kind of happen?
So Andy has been doing Fan Effect for about 5 to 6 years now.
Okay.
And so as we were talking one day, I'm like, oh, and I told him about my dream of Warner Brothers and the nerd and stuff, because of course I'm covered in nerd stuff. Like today's Fandom Friday, I have my shark dress on because I love sharks. I'm calling it my Jaws one. And he's like, we should have you on. I'm like, I'd love that. I was super shy and anxious at the time. But going to things like FanX and going to panels and start talking to people and going to movies on my own, it brought me to the comfort level where I can start doing things like this. And so Andy's wife, she had seen Captain Marvel. She had seen Captain Marvel. And I'd actually gone just as a producer to be there. So Andy was like, my wife is sick. Can you come in and do this podcast with us? So that was my first time guesting on Fan Effect. And it kind of just grew from there. He knew I love DC Comics, so he was pulling me in on different shows I'd been seeing as a producer. I was able to eventually start co-hosting that. I'm like, hey, can I co-host? She's like, yeah, I need some help on this anyway. I was started doing their social, and it's grown from there. And I love it. And I get to meet amazing people. I get to volunteer now with great people as well that I've met through this organization. And it's so fun to see and meet these people and share their fandoms and share their love of stories and open my mind into all these other stories I wasn't involved with. So it definitely was a progressive thing. And I need to do better at, promoting myself with it.
That's the thing about trying to be a content creator in this day and age is that a lot of it is about luck. A lot of it is, you can make great content and just doesn't click, and you can try everything that you can think of and then you can do something that's just like, what? Like I didn't even, that was just kind of a random thing, I did. And people love it, and it's just, it's so unpredictable. But like, I think the key is working hard enough so that you're there when the luck happens.
And you have to ask for that luck. I literally went to KSL. I went to Amanda Dixon and said, this is what I want in my life. The company I'm at isn't going to work out for me. This is my goal. And she's like, okay, let's do this. And I was prepared with that luck. So I came with a good resume, with a good letter. When I talked to Doug Wright, I was ready with the vision for what he wanted. I said, this is what I'm good at. I'm good at setting up events. I'm good at doing clubs like this. I've done theatrical productions and volunteer events for ages. Like, let's do this. Like that is something a Disney animator once said at a FanX panel. It's like, it's luck. You can work so hard, but it's luck in taking the opportunities to use that luck. And that's exactly what I try to do now.
Yeah, definitely. So did you have, aside from Batman, did you have early films that really formed your taste growing up?
So much. Oh my goodness. I'm a huge Disney file. Disney is probably my absolute favorite. And I also really love sci-fi and psychological things, not psychological horror or thriller, but things that get you thinking. And so I think and I'm really lucky. So I was born in 86. So the year I really remember going to theaters was like 1995. And do you know how many amazing movies came out in 1995? I remember it was Beauty and the Beast and Ferngully and Hook and all these amazing shows going as a kid. And it captured my imagination. And it was a time where we still had the dollar movies. So almost every weekend, my mom would drop me off and a friend at the dollar movies, and we just watch all the shows.
In those early 90s, the movies would stay in the theaters for so long.
Right. I think over and over and over again.
Oh yeah. I remember Jurassic Park. That was a very influential movie.
I was totally thinking that one. Yes.
Yeah. And I just saw it on repeat over and over. And it was that whole summer it was in the theater. And because you had the regular run, plus then you had the dollar discount.
Yeah, but we'd go the whole time. My brother saw Jurassic Park 13 times when it came out. That's how much we loved it.
Yeah,
and I probably saw it 6 times in the theaters. So I just had these really great stories at the time that captured my imagination. And then as I got into middle school, that's when I started doing theatrical productions. And so I started learning a bit more about the idea of taking storytelling, the performance aspect, the production aspect. And as an actor, you're asked to think about how your characters are reacting, what the story means to you, what it means in a historical context. So I think that's really what launched me into my love of theater. And film and any type of storytelling was this kind of really cool combination of, you know, these amazing movies that came out, doing theatrical production. And then like Harry Potter came out, and I grew up with Harry Potter. So I just have fallen so deeply and thoroughly in love with storytelling.
Yeah. So I was too old for Harry Potter. It didn't come out till I was in college, but you know, I mean, I certainly did respect it and could see why it was so popular. I usually, when I was little, I tended to like things that were a little more grounded. Like if it was going to be fantasy, it would usually be kind of set in the real world. Like I didn't like, my mom would try to read us Lord of the Rings, things like that. It was just not as interesting to me as for me in comparison to something like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That was the kind of like Roald Dahl was more sort of my brand of quote unquote fantasy. But for the most part, I liked things that were more grounded when I was little. I liked the first like big book that I ever remember reading was Little Women. Was the first
one. Yeah, same with me. Like third
I'm proud of. I finished this big book.
Didn't understand half of it, but I'm like, I did it.
Yeah, I did it. And crying, Beth died, you know, everything. And then Anna Green Gables was a big one. There were a couple others, but yeah, I also got super into live theater in high school. I still, you know, I still do theater reviews of Theater Critic.
And, I see your reviews. I think it's probably more the reviews I look at of yours.
Yeah, good. That's what I like. but yeah, and I particularly Les Mis, that was very influential for me. I just 100%. Fell in love with it in high school.
Yep, I went and saw it. My mom took me. We did a 9th grade trip instead of a senior trip.
Oh yeah,
we worked for the airlines, and she thought by the time we're seniors in high school, we probably wouldn't like her that much. And we went to London, and I saw like the London cast on stage, front row center. I could reach out and touch the conductor if I wanted. Les Mis was just a pivotal one for me.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. Some of the shows that you were actually in.
That I was in?
Yeah, you said you did theatricals.
I've done Cinderella a lot.
Okay.
Rodgers and Hammerstein's. I actually have a children's book I wrote about theater production, and I did so much Cinderella.
Oh my gosh.
The cool, production that's actually happening during, if you look close enough, you can tell it's Cinderella. I've done Fiddle on the Roof several times, Joseph Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat all the times.
Of course.
You know, a lot of the standard Utah shows that everyone does. But probably my favorite is, you know, I actually started moving backstage because I'm not a lead person. I've been a lead before. I was the lead in, you know, Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Oh, that's fun.
But like I realized I liked the backstage.
Like when you were little? Or like
even when I was young, because my dad still does theater. I grew up with my dad doing the community theater.
Oh, you were one of the kids?
I was one of the kids. Oh, yes, okay. He came to volunteer for Wizard of Oz when my sister was in the show, but I was in a choir, and we never left. 30-something years. Never.
Were you one of the rowdy kids in pageant?
No, I was Beth. I was the lead.
Oh, okay.
I was the narrator. I was supposed to lead the bows. Okay. But I'm such a timid person. I can be a character. I would forget to lead the bows, and so I get like elbowed in the side to start the bows.
It's so smart to me that they're doing a the Angel Studios doing a movie of that this year. I'm like, that just
What?
makes so much sense. I think that'll be a big hit.
I love Angel. I've been down to Angels a few times, and
Hmm.
that seems like a great place to do it. Everything.
Yeah, because it's like it's a
Mhm.
faith-based story, but it's like pretty tame.
Yes.
It just happens to be set at a church, and
Hmm.
but it's very sweet, and I think
Anything
it'll
to
do quite
just
well. I really
mhm,
do.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
think my favorite of all was Jane Eyre. We did that when I
Ah,
was in my early 20s, and I just helped on the production side and helped a lot with the
oh,
costumer.
cool.
And it's
Yeah.
such a beautiful story of forgiveness. The music is amazing.
Hmm.
And that's when I always go back to. Like, we sing a lot in our house, forgiveness, it's the
Hmm.
mightiest sword. So that's probably like my
Yeah.
favorite I've done.
Uh-huh.
Although, like, for years, I'm like, if you guys do Into the Woods, you have to do it with me. And so when it finally came around, that was probably one of my last big productions with this group. I assistant directed that, and it was one of the most
And
favorite, amazing things I've ever done. I've assistant directed a few different things with them.
which
Me and
company is it?
this is the Ripon Arts Council. It's kind of been shut down
Uh-huh.
after COVID and some drama with the city. They want me to come back. So the last thing I did with them was Annie, but
Hmm.
um, I was able to take that experience and move it into
Hmm.
theatrical, radio production, things like that. So,
Yeah. That's
mhm.
interesting that
Yeah.
you were able to take the skills and
Mhm.
transfer them from one to the other.
Yeah.
I
There's
mean,
been
yeah.
a few years ago with the gubernatorial debate, I was still doing radio, and I'm sitting there and I'm arranging this all. It's the middle of the pandemic. It's Zoom. I'm talking to Huntsman and all these different big political people and their assistants. They're like, "You're so good at this. You're getting all these different issues." I'm like, this is nothing. It's hard. Double cast 300 children in Annie. This is easy stuff. This is old
Yeah.
hat.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, oh, they get. I mean, everything's so competitive here in Utah. That's the thing. Like, I would love to like just be part of like some kind of production, but like, I mean, I am the world's worst dancer, like terrible. So I can sing okay, but like,
Mhm.
you need to just make an extra spot in the back where I can just hide because I'm really bad at dancing.
And I get frustrated with because I've always put in the ensemble for the most part, particularly with musicals, because I don't have the confidence to sing.
Hmm.
Um, and I get frustrated because I'm like, you guys, we're here. Let's actually pay attention. Let's go to
Yeah.
work. So I end up doing the production side, which I love.
Well, do you have a favorite like musical that you love the most? So you said Into the Woods.
Oh, out of loyalty, I would say Les Mis, but it's really ragtime.
Oh,
I
it's a
saw
great
it
one.
at Pioneer Theater Company when I was in either middle school or high school or something. And it is such a
Yeah.
powerful, moving, wonderful story. I think everyone in America right now needs to take a break and go see a good production of that musical. My dream role, of course, would be Mother, but I'm not talented enough, so let me be Emma Goldman. I just think it's one of the most amazing, beautiful ones. And sadly, we don't see it that much here in Utah since we don't have the diversity really to support it. So every single time I see it's coming to Hell Center Theater or if Pioneer Theater Company or Centerpoint is doing it, I am
Hmm.
there in a heartbeat because I think
Yeah.
everyone in the world needs to see that musical.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really. It's you watch it, and you think, how did this thing get made? I mean, it's just so ambitious, so many characters,
Mhm.
so many. Like the music is so hard, and you just think, how
Auburn.
did this
Oh
get off the
no! Yeah.
ground?
It's
Yeah.
beautiful, and it's really fun too because like I fell in love with the musical, so then I've read the book and I've seen the movie, and I'm a
Hmm.
firm believer when you change the medium of whatever message, it
Yeah.
does change the message because you're reading a different audience. So I really love this one as well as a transition between the book to the movie to the musical.
Yeah.
And the musical is the best of all of them.
Yeah, why do you think that so many shows have struggled to become adapted to successful movies?
When you want to adapt it for the money and not for the message is really what
Hmm.
it is, or not for the humor, or not for the audience.
Hmm.
Like I look at Les Mis as an example of that. I really wasn't fond of the movie, although I love Hugh
Yeah,
Jackman.
it's not the best.
It's
Yeah,
not the best, and I think it's
it could
because
have been a lot better, that's for
it could
sure.
have been a lot better, and particularly the way they recorded the music, just it didn't work for me. And I think when it's more of a cash grab, then let's enjoy and love the show.
Hmm.
It makes it really, really difficult.
Yeah, and
Um,
I also think there's something about like performing to the back of the room in a show that like really works. But then when you take that same energy and apply it to a movie, it all just feels like, I mean, it already feels phony because it's a
Right.
musical, and which it doesn't, it's just different than, and I am like the world's biggest apologist when it comes to musicals. Like I'm very forgiving
Me
on the
too, because
screen.
like, yes, it is
But
what it is.
I'm like, yeah, it wasn't perfect, but oh, come on, guys, it's
Come
not that
on, they
bad.
put a lot of work in it. There's all
But
this, yeah,
but like you
yeah.
think of something like Dear Evan Hansen, like what
Mhm.
kind of feels sincere and true, and we can kind of go with sort of what they're trying to say when
It
you
doesn't work in a
translate
movie.
it to, particularly with keep trying to keep the original cast and everything, that
Mhm.
when you translate it to the screen, it all just feels more phony and more
Mhm.
forced, and it's just not. I mean, I didn't hate that movie as much as other people,
Mhm.
but it certainly
I didn't even
wasn't
see it because
success.
everyone was pulling it apart so much, so
It
I needed
certainly
to
wasn't
see
a
it.
success. I mean,
Yeah.
it was not a great film, but yeah, I don't know. There's something about that. The translation is really
It's
tough, and a lot of times they wait too long, so then they
yeah,
kind of miss their moment. I'm a little nervous about that with Wicked,
it's very much
because
so.
I mean, they just waited so long that, and I feel like the casting is very like obviously Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, super talented, but they're both too old for these roles. Like, I
It
mean,
doesn't
it's
work.
ridiculous. I mean, they're both starting college at the beginning of the show.
Mhm.
There's no world where Cynthia Erivo was a fresh college student. That doesn't make any sense. So
Mhm.
I don't know what's
And you
going
don't
on
have the 30 feet buffer that you have on a stage. Like,
exactly.
that's the thing you have to be
Yeah,
aware of when you're taking a musical, make it into a movie. You
yeah,
don't have your buffer.
yeah,
And you have to set it up in such a way that that escapism that you get in person in a theater is translated
yeah.
to the screen. And I
And
think
I
a good
think it's a
example of that is
huge,
In the Heights. Like,
yeah.
love In the Heights.
Yeah. I think it's
Mhm.
a huge mistake to make it into two parts as well, because Wicked is a very top heavy musical. Almost
Mhm.
all the good songs are in the first act, not the second act. And
Sorry, he's
so, I mean, there's
Anita.
like maybe two standout songs in the second act.
Mhm.
And so you're just like, what? How are they going to
Mhm.
do this? Like, it's,
And that goes to the cash grab. If it was really more of the story, you would have kept it. Same
mm,
with the last Harry Potter. Like, of all the books to split into two parts,
yeah,
that is the worst
agreed.
one. Like, and so and I understand because Hollywood's the one where you're going to get these big amazing things and wonderful storytelling and cool visual effects, and the production value for the most part is going to be
Yeah.
amazing. But sometimes the money gets in the way of the message and it messes up. Like, I look at the
Yeah.
new song in the Les Mis that they wrote. That was just to try to get an Emmy or
Yeah. There's
something
no,
like that.
no
It wasn't
question.
for the story.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is I always feel like I'm a storytelling advocate. I'm an arts
Mm.
advocate. That's what I
Yeah.
want to talk about.
Yeah.
And this is Zealand. He's been bugging me and he
Ah,
wanted to come
yeah.
onto our Zoom call here. He's a jack of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Well, since you've been doing fan effect, do you feel like there's a movie that you really kind of champion or had an unpopular opinion on that you liked more than seemed like other people?
All the time.
Yeah.
I think as well as like I don't see myself as a film critic. I don't see
Uh-huh.
myself as a critic in general. I'm a fan that loves talking about fandom so much that you can't shut me up. So I'm
Uh-huh.
going to go to a movie and I'm going to enjoy for the most part just for the fact that it's enjoyable. So like I liked Captain Marvel. I liked Wonder Woman 2. I like these things that lots of people kind of pull apart to a bit. They maybe are a little overcritical because they say it's woke or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm trying. Is there any big ones? I don't know. Like, I probably
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 2. I really enjoyed it, but I also grew up on the character. I
Mm.
love DC Comics. I love Pedro Pascal in it as Max Lord. Like it, I love the feeling of it. But that's probably the biggest one of the recent years. Is
Mm.
I loved that. I don't
It
care
was
what people
definitely
say.
disappointing. I wanted it to be so much better than it was. And I think it was
Hmm.
hard because the first one was so good.
The first one
It's
was
so
so good,
beloved.
yes. But I
Uh,
think also I was more familiar with the story and the content and the story arcs because I've read the comics for years.
mm,
So it was one of those ones geared towards me, the fan,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many unpopular opinions this year. It's like I'm starting a collection.
Oh, I've watched
Like,
hardly
what?
any movies this year because I haven't been that interested. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the reason that there's a problem is
mhm,
that even if the movie is good,
mhm.
they're not they're kind of niche. They're kind
Yes,
of,
yes.
and until Inside Out 2, it seems to be the first one, and Dune Part 2
Mhm.
that's really
Love
like
to. Mhm.
really capturing people's interest.
Well, and the thing of the matter is, our wallets can't handle as much media
Yeah,
as we
it's
have in the
true.
past, and we have so much media and so much niche media
Mm-hmm.
that we want to pay for a streaming service that will give us multiple movies a month
Mm-hmm.
versus going one time to the movie theaters. Which is why I do love the Megaplex where they have the discount Tuesdays. But
Yeah,
like, I miss the dollar movies.
I
I miss
know.
being able to go see things like that,
I
and
know.
I miss the long runs that they used to have. So you literally
Mm-hmm.
you can't expect people to support movies like they have in the past when we don't have the financial access to
Yeah.
it.
I'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Elise Murray and her exciting book, Society Girl. Set in the mysterious world of Oxford University's secret societies, Society Girl follows Sam, a duke's estranged daughter, as she attempts to join the most famous club of them all, the Animos Society. Her final initiation challenge is simple: find a man, convince him she's in love with him, and then break his heart in humiliating fashion. Hardened by her father's rejections, believing that the Animos Society is her key to his love and acceptance, Sam throws herself into making Daniel Best, her father's chauffeur and local musician, fall for her. But she never counted on falling in love with him right back. Fans of Colleen Hoover, Anna Hong, and Mia Sheridan will love Society Girl, a sweeping romance from bestselling novelist and screenwriter Elise Murray. Free for Kindle Unlimited users for a limited time. Go to elisemurray.com/novels/Society Girl for more information. Or you can use the affiliate link below. So how do you decide what you're going to cover as far as for fan effect?
So our kind of our agreement with our sponsors, which is the Megaplex Theaters, which they're
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. We do like 2 episodes a month is kind of what the contract is. And so I usually do 2 deep dives a month. So I usually pick one movie and one event or one local artist to tell them or something to tell me about their favorite fandom. So a lot of it is as well as, Andy's so busy now trying to get him in, seeing who's available there. So usually there's like 1 or 2 movies I really want to see. So I'll pick that and then I'll slide in with others. But really it's what do I feel confident enough to talk about? What am I passionate enough to talk about and have the time to do it? So this month we did Inside Out 2, which I
Mm-hmm.
had my niece and I
Oh,
had
that's cute.
Jared from the Movies That Make Us podcast came on too.
Oh, nice.
I don't want to just review everything. I want to really think about the message and the audience it's geared towards. So I loved this one because I had a film critic who is professional, who loves movies, who is a parent. So I was able to bring him on to have that alternate. Then I had my niece who's 13 years old who grew up with this and I was able to
Mm-hmm.
talk it. So it's really much, I want to be able to look at the message and the meaning
Yeah.
behind the movie. So that's a big part of it. And then, what cool, fun thing can I promote that's happening here in Utah?
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to do this month. There's the Colonial Reenactment Festival coming in the first week of July. I was going to
Mm-hmm.
do, but it fell through. So we're talking about me today.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yep,
Yeah, that's the thing about living in Utah that I don't know if people in Utah really understand how unique it is.
they don't.
I've lived in Sacramento area, I've
Mhm.
lived in DC area, I've lived in Indiana, and there's just nothing like what they have here. I
No.
mean, you might have I'm sure we could have dug further and there were probably some
Mhm.
local companies we didn't know about, but there were like 2 local
Mhm.
like community
Yeah.
theaters in the Sacramento area that we knew about. Like here,
Mhm.
I mean, you could literally go to see something every single night if you wanted to, and
Oh, yeah.
it would be like quality worth seeing like 90% of the time.
Mhm.
And that's just theater.
Yeah.
There's a
Well,
million
even if it's not
symphonies
the high
and recitals
yeah,
and a million things that you could do.
concerts and cosplays and events,
Yeah.
and I love it. And even if you go to something and it's not a really great production,
Yeah.
you can feel the passion exuding
Yeah.
from the people. And I love that about Utah. And you have
Yeah.
these really cool clash of hyper conservative, very liberal things to
Yeah.
do as well, and the
Well,
beautiful places. Like I
sometimes
love going to Deer Valley for films and
yeah, oh
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah, I'm going on next Saturday. I'm going up to Deer Valley for they're doing a Christmas in July concert
mhm.
for
Of
the
course
symphony and
you're
stuff.
going to
Yeah, I'm
that.
like, of
Oh, I
course
love
I have to
it.
go.
That sounds
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. But but sometimes I think I actually prefer the
Mhm.
experience of community theater over the
Mhm.
equity
Yep.
productions, the professional. That's what they call it, equity productions, because you kind of grow with the performers through the course of especially if you're their opening night. You might start
Mhm.
out a little bit nervous, a little bit, and then you feel the confidence growing, and then they get to the big song, the 11 o'clock number, and then they
Mhm.
crush it, and you're like, yes, you did it, where you don't have that kind of journey with a
Mhm.
professional.
You
Usually
don't.
it's
Mhm.
not the
Well, and
same.
also like the community people and stuff, they feed so much more off of the audience.
Yeah,
Like one thing I always
true.
tell people when they see a show is, we're in Utah and we have a predominant religion here,
Hmm.
that you don't clap or make too much noise in church. And so one thing I always
Right.
encourage audiences, like if I'm directing or at a production, I remind them ahead of time, like, hey, you're not in church. We want you to clap. We want you to be involved and feed
It's
the
true.
the people on the stage. So like when I see these, I love to just, feed them as much as they're feeding me.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm one of those shouters. I'll stand up and give an ovation at almost any
Yeah.
production.
So have you actually had to like lead panels and stuff like that at FanX?
Hmm.
Yeah. What's some of
Every
your
year,
favorites?
favorite that I've done.
Yeah.
Ooh, last year we did a fan effect panel, and it was "What's Your Favorite Fandom," which is now spurned a whole series on the podcast, and it was really fun because we had Andy and I on it. We had our friend Don Brinkerhoff from KSL. And our friend Natalie, who used to be at KSNL, now she's doing other stuff. And it was so much fun to hear how these fandoms helped people and like sparked different moments in their life and made a difference. And it was the first time I
Mhm.
actually left the house with my Laku, which is the twin noodle tails that some characters, Twi'leks in Star Wars use. So it was a
Oh.
very big moment for me to actually go out and do that. But the coolest thing is after the panel, like the last 20 minutes, we opened up the audience to come and share the stories that changed them, the fandoms that changed them. And it just reinforced this idea to me of, these aren't just stories, it's not just entertainment. These make people's lives. It shapes their personalities. It helps them connect and see the world around them. So I think that was my favorite panel that I was a part of at FanX. And that was actually an idea that I pitched, and I love so much that, we're kind of doing this today. What's my favorite fandom is every
Hmm.
fandom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So have you gotten starstruck meeting anybody?
Hugh Jackman owes me a kiss.
Oh.
This is when I was still hiding a lot of my nerdiness.
Uh-huh.
Senior year, our big trip, we went to New York with my theater friends and everything. And it was when he was doing The Boy from Oz.
Uh-huh.
We had seen Moving Out in the theater next door. But we
Okay.
knew Boy from Oz was next door. So me and my friends, after our production, we just waited at the back door for
Stage
him.
door.
The
Yeah.
whole street just filled up with people. My friend flirted her way in and got some playbills for us to have him sign. And so he's signing the playbills. We're right on the front, right there. He smelled amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And my friend Melanie was like, well, can I have a kiss? And he gives her a kiss. I'm like, well, if she gets one, I get one too. And he says, sure, love. And then someone put a program in front of his face to sign, and he kept moving on. So I have a
That's
verbal
bold to
agreement,
ask him for a kiss. I bet they wouldn't do that now
right?
with COVID and everything. There's no way.
No, right, yeah. But
Yeah,
there's
no
always the
way.
joke is, if ever comes to FanX, and I've told Dan Farr and, Roe and all these people at FanX, I'm like, when he comes, he owes me a kiss.
That's funny.
So that's probably the most starstruck. Other than that, I actually love working with like directors and producers.
Hmm.
And the thing is I just relate to that more.
Yeah.
Not as much of a celebrity stalker.
Yeah.
I've met quite a few, but I'm always like, ooh, tell me how you did this. Tell me
Yeah.
the message behind it. How do I want to sit on the wall of the writing room? Those are the people I get starstruck
Yeah.
by. And it's so silly, but we had on the Church News podcast, the Newells, Lloyd Newell and his wife,
Oh, right.
Carmel.
Hmm.
He's been the voice of the Tabernacle Choir for 30 years. That's probably the most Star Trek I've ever been. I just got to gush with them about how much I love the work that they're doing and, that was probably the most starstruck I've ever
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get starstruck very easily either. They're just, they're just they're just normal people. I've interviewed a
They're just
lot of
people that did a cool
actors,
job. Yeah.
over the years. And I also love talking to the writers. The
Yes.
very, very first person we ever had on Hallmarkies podcast was a writer, Nina Wyman. And I kind of am proud of the fact that within the Hallmarkies fandom, the hardcore Hallmarkies, they know the writers, and when they're looking forward to a movie, they're like, oh, this is Julie Sherman Wolf script, this is a Nina Weinman script, this is a Tracy Andrean script, whatever. And I feel like that's kind of unique that like people know I mean, aside from like an Aaron Sorkin or somebody like that, there's a few writers that people know by name, but like to have so many within this little fandom that people know and get more excited, honestly, than even the actors sometimes, with the exception of a couple. And I feel like we deserve a little credit for that.
Yeah.
Really do. Because it has been very important to me to nurture the writers and to celebrate the writers. And so I love talking to writers, and I don't get starstruck that easily. I guess the closest I probably got was interviewing Fran Drescher. I interviewed her twice.
Oh yes, she's great. I've met her before too. Yeah,
absolutely wonderful. Cool. And of course, this was before she became a union activist. Unbelievable. Wow. When I interviewed her, but she did a movie for Lifetime. And so I talked to her about that. And then we interviewed her during the pandemic. My friends and I did a little, we called the Fran cast, where we recapped every episode of The Nanny, because it's my favorite show.
I love The Nanny. See, we're friends. We're kindred spirits.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's like classic rom-com writing. Her and Fran and Mr. Sheffield. Like, it's just so good. And so I love that show. And so we were able to have her on the Fran cast, and that was really cool. And then the other person would be Brooke Elliott, who's maybe not as well known, but I loved Drop Dead Diva so much. It was a very special show to me. And she was just amazing. And so it was very cool to get to interview her. But those are probably the two most excited, kind of.
You were just so excited.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone that you're like waiting so badly to see that you want to one day?
Well, I've interviewed Lacey Chabert on the red carpet, but I would love to do like a sit down 40-minute, like that kind of thing. She came in just briefly to say hi, one of our patron watch alongs that we do, because we interviewed Michael and Janine. I mean, we interviewed Michael and Janine Damian, who are directors of her Christmas Waltz movie, and then they came on for our patron watch along, and then Lacey streamed in for like 10 minutes or so, and we got to talk to her. But I've never done a sit down one-on-one kind of interview with Lacey. I would love that. She's like the queen of Hallmark, so I would love to talk to her, and also of course ask her about Mean Girls and so many other things. So she's a big one that I would love. I mean, in my dreams of dreams, I would love to talk to Meg Ryan. I mean, that would probably never happen, but I would love to talk to her.
I love that. Like, there's Andrea Romano. She was like the voice director for the DC animated universe for like years and years. And she's actually one of my biggest inspirations. She gave me one of her pieces of advice is, when you go into an organization, learn like every role. And as you do that, you become more helpful and able to kind of go in between everything. And that was really some of the big success I've had of KSL, is being able to do that.
Yeah,
I would love to sit down and talk to her about directing, voice acting. And then of course, Steven Spielberg. Like, I just want to bask in his glow someday. In the movie show, when I was doing it, I always would, there's a Animaniacs clip, which I love Animaniacs, that they go, "How's Spielbergian?" It was one of those clips I would insert in all the time.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big animation fan too. So I have had a chance to talk to a lot of voice actors over the years.
Yes.
Like I talked to Tara Strong.
Yeah, she's great.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
And so that's always a treat to get to do. And it's fun when you get to interview people that typically aren't in the spotlight, that don't get the, like, it's,
I find it more interesting.
Like it's fun. I absolutely had a great time interviewing people like Fran and stuff like that. But like it's part of a junket. It's fairly, standard, and she was absolutely great. I'm not saying, but like somebody that nobody cares what they have to say about things, and then you sit down with them and say, I really care what you, I want to hear your story. Like sometimes those can be the best interviews. Like one time there's this guy who uh who started telling us all about how the hotel that they were filming this Christmas movie in was haunted, was like a legit had like been haunted. And by the end of the interview, I was like in tears laughing. It was so funny. And so like that was definitely one of the most memorable interviews that we've ever done. But things like that can be really fun. I like this last year I interviewed Craig did Kirk this last year I interviewed Kirk D'Amico, who was the director of Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, which was a movie that just got buried. The studio didn't care about it. It got middling reviews, and it was very like all over Twitter and everything was very hard on it. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like a very sweet little film about being a teenager and her relationship with her mother. And I thought the animation was good.
So.
Yeah, like I just didn't think it was like garbage, like people were treating it. And so I reached out to him and I was just like, I just want you to know that like one person likes your movie, you know, like it's just so, it bothered me the way it was treated. And so we started chatting, and then he ended up coming on my show, and we just had a good chat. And I, you know, that feels good. It feels like using your powers for good, not evil.
Right. And like, I actually, you know, Disney parks for a long time, they had like a series on YouTube I absolutely adored, and it's called Every Role is Starring Role. And they would go and they would look at, you know, not just the big face characters, but the producers, the divers that would clean the pond every night, the people that were designing this or doing that. And I love that idea. And I try to bring that into my life when I'm talking to people, is like, I don't want to just talk to the star. I want to talk to the person who set up the craft services. Every role really is a starring role. And one thing I say a lot about theater, and particularly, I call it like the stained glass window of arts. And that's the idea. Everything is so nice and shiny, and every part is so nice and shiny. But when it comes together, that's really what creates the story and the message. So I love.
It's like the old quote of it. There are no small parts, only small actors.
Exactly. And like the thing is when you're always like, do you want to go see celebrities at FanX? I'm like, no, I want to go to the panels. I want to hear the fans talking. Because you see enough of them, they're going to tell the same story over and again, because they know what's going to make them laugh and everything. But I want to sit and like really pick apart the process and the people and things like that.
I agree. Yeah, it was really cool. There was one actor in particular that I was talking to him, and he was just so embarrassed about everything, and just so like, oh, that's just a small part. That's you know, and I was like, this interview is going nowhere. Like, and I was beginning to feel bad, because I didn't want him to be like embarrassed listening to it and be like, well, I sounded, you know, it's like, and so I was like, how do I save this? How do I do it? And I it was right before the Oscars that year, and it was the year that the Joker had come out. And even though it's Hallmarkies podcast, I was like, hey, you seen any of the Oscar nominees? You seen any of the Best Picture? And he was like, oh yeah. And so we started talking, and we spent probably, because I didn't like Joker, and we spent probably like 5 minutes maybe talking about Joker and why he liked it and why I didn't like it, and back and forth. And I knew that we were going to get a bunch of people in the comments being like, you are totally off topic. Why do you know, whatever. And I was like, no, I saved that interview with that question, because he immediately felt confident, and he felt that like the whole tone of the interview changed. He wasn't apologizing for his roles. He wasn't. But I was very happy with the interview in the end, how it turned out. But it made me so excited. This recent Angel Studios movie, Sight. I was watching it, and this actor who had, you know, only been in these very small roles, he had like a pretty big role playing the father of the lead character. He's in quite a few scenes in like a nationally rolled out, you know, like a pretty big movie, not just like on Hallmark. And he did a great job, and I was just like, oh my God.
I know him, right? I feel that sometimes about going to local theater productions and stuff, and be like, I saw her at this production. They're fantastic.
Right.
Like, these little roles, these little parts, whether film or stage or writing or whatnot, like
Yeah.
I appreciate the work and the effort, and I just want people to shine and be joyful. And it doesn't matter if you're an audience of one or an audience of a million. Like, you can impact a person by the way you portray and tell a story, and it just warms my heart.
It really is. It's true. Well, very good. Well, we have some fun get to know you questions we like to end off with, and I'm going to give you the slightly Broadway version of it too.
Oh, okay. I'm not as in depth with Broadway as I have been in the past. So
okay. Well, we'll see. So what is the best ice cream flavor?
Best ice cream flavor. It's called Graham Central Station, and it's at Handles. It's chocolate with graham cracker covered in chocolate. It's amazing.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. So what's your favorite color?
I don't have a favorite color, and it drives my nephew insane. I love them all. And when he was little, he would try to trick me.
Yeah.
Like, he thought he could surprise me into telling him my favorite color. And so he would like sneak it into conversations. But I love them all. They all are great different ways.
What music are you into?
I listen to a lot of Broadway show tunes, a lot of soundtrack movies, and a lot of Disney. And I used to have a group of friends that would not let me be in charge of the music because
for the road trips,
tired of Disney over and over and over.
Well, would you have a favorite cast recording?
Ragtime. We're going back to Ragtime. Audra McDonald, like,
good choice.
Beautiful. And then I love the 10th anniversary Les Mis concert. Wonderful.
Oh yeah, that's the one I was hooked on.
That's what got me in.
Repeat
all the time. I've even wondered, like, I know that laugh. I wonder who that person is. That's just a random person in an audience 30 years ago, and I'm in love with it. So
yeah. What would you say is your go-to date night food?
Date night? I don't go on dates. What are you talking about?
If you were going to pick the dream.
Date night food. I am a big boba and bao fan. So I want a melon, so like honeydew melon with the regular tapioca boba. Give me a couple of bao. Give me a custard to finish it off. And then we're going to go to the Megaplex, and I'm going to get popcorn, and I'm going to throw, what are they called? The Sour Patch Kids into it.
Oh, okay. Well, what would be your go-to date night activity if you're going out doing something? Or like your dream date?
Probably like take me to the theater and like let's talk about it afterwards. Not a dinner afterwards and then the movie and go home. But we need to sit down and pull apart this.
See, you've got it. That's what we always tell people. It's not dinner. It shouldn't be dinner and movie. It should be movie and dinner.
Yes. And because you have to discuss afterwards. Yeah. So
that's right. You got something to talk about. You can talk about the movie. Very good. Do you have a favorite show currently on Broadway? I don't know if you know what's kind of out there, but like current recent show.
I love them all. There's not really any I'm obsessed with. But I'm going to flip that and say my favorite of all time, my comfort show is Hello, Dolly. I will watch that over and over and over again.
Did you see it at Hale recently when they did it?
I've seen it many times, but not the most recent one.
Oh my gosh. I'm kind of on Hello Dolly, but like you couldn't not like this production.
Burn. Yeah, it's
like, it's fine. I don't hate it, but they had a real like life-size train. Like it was a whole train.
That's awesome.
It was amazing. I was just like, I feel like Hale sometimes is kind of like Utah's Disneyland. Yeah. Like it's all about like the spectacle and the big and the,
it's always plussing it up.
Sometimes I just feel like going to Disneyland. So like, it's fun. Yeah.
No, but the actual production, like I said before, when I was at the Warner's lot, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where they filmed it. The choreography, that was Gene Kelly. The movie, the music. I love that. The leads actually don't get along in life. The music is kind of sexist at times, but like there's something about that is so comforting to me.
Definitely. And you got to think of Wally now. That's what I always think of when I think of Hello Dolly.
I love Wally. Yeah, but maybe not something particularly on Broadway right now, but give me Hello Dolly, good production. I'm going to be happy. And I literally want like half of her outfits.
Okay. Which do you like better, dogs or cats?
Dogs. You saw my dog that climbed onto my lap. I am 1,000% dogs.
All right. So these are an either or. This is Broadway shows.
Okay.
Which would you rather, Mamma Mia or Jersey Boys?
Mamma Mia.
Wicked or The Lion King?
Wicked.
Annie or Matilda?
Ooh. I'm sticking with classic. Give me Annie.
Okay. Into the Woods or Company?
Into the Woods.
Phantom or Joseph?
Oh, Phantom, 1000%. And I'm not even a big Phantom fan. I've just done Joseph too many freaking times.
Yes. It's so popular here in Utah.
Oh,
Hairspray or Hamilton?
oh, that's a hard one. Oh, I love Hairspray, but I'm gonna have to say Hamilton.
Yeah. Okay, good. Chicago or Cabaret? Have you seen either of those?
Chicago.
Chicago, yeah. The Music Man or Annie Get Your Gun?
Music Man.
Les Mis or Sweeney Todd?
Les Mis.
Yeah.
Les
Very
Mis.
good.
1000%. 1000.
Okay, a couple more. Which do you like better, beaches or mountains?
Mountains. I want to be a mountain pirate. Like, can I just stay up there and
You
live?
live in the right state.
Yep. Love
Yeah.
it. It's cooler than
Yeah.
down where I'm right now.
What is your favorite holiday to celebrate?
Halloween all day, all year, all day long. I celebrate halfway to Halloween, Summerween, 100 days to
Nice.
Halloween. It's the best, man. Me and
What's your
Andy
most
actually
epic
last year
costume?
did a Christmas versus Halloween episode of Fan Effect.
Oh, that's fun.
He
Yeah.
almost won me over because you guys have carols, but we don't have Halloween carols.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there aren't quite as many. I mean, I guess if you include all horror movies as Halloween, then there are, but there's a lot more Christmas.
Last Friday night, I had my niece and nephews over, and we had to do some of our favorite stuff. So Halloween movies and crafting. We watched Hubie Halloween. Like, I love Halloween.
Shit.
It's so good. I do love Hubie Halloween.
That's funny. All right, last question. Do you have a favorite romantic or Hallmark movie?
I'm not that's what we've talked about this before. I'm not a Hallmark person.
But just a romance in general. It could be a sad one, like The Notebook or something.
I am awful. I cannot think of a single one that I would put up there.
What about your favorite movie musical?
Favorite movie
Hello,
musical?
Dolly.
Ooh, well, yeah, Hello Dolly is really high up there. But I love when I don't like the actual like full-blown productions as much as I like when they capture like on the stage production.
Oh, yeah. Pro Shop.
And I love when they did Rent, and it's like last week that it was on Broadway.
Oh,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Like it's not just an audience point of view. They had like cameras going in and out, like on the stage, the lighting, I want to watch that one.
I don't know why. Honestly, I don't know why they don't just literally do that for every show. I think because especially in the day where they call it like shows that are streamed on like illegally on YouTube, but they call it Paint, Paint. Mm-hmm. And especially where that's so prolific, like you might as well just, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You might as well just do it and do it right and get the income from it and the promotion from it, because I know there was like the worry, people are just going to stay at home, but that is not proven to be the case at all with Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
It's just as expensive as it ever was, even though you can watch it on Disney Plus, which like most people who are interested in Hamilton will have Disney Plus. And
I've been debating
it hasn't proven to be a much of a suck. I mean, Hamilton's coming here this summer, and the tickets, I think the cheapest are like $150. Cheapest.
They're so expensive. And that's like nosebleed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have some of them. Like, I've been really tempted to get the Broadway HD membership because that's the only place I can see the Kathy Rigby version of
right. Yeah. And She Loves Me.
And She Loves Me, and they have a lot more of those.
With Zachary Levi.
Me and my friend JJ are like, should we do this? Like, we have to make it worthwhile. So we have to like every week come together and watch musicals.
I can give you some recommendations.
Yeah.
But they have Daddy Longlegs
surgery, and I'll be home for 2 months, so I might get it for the 2
Yeah,
months.
they have Daddy Longlegs on. If you love Jane Eyre, Daddy Longlegs is by the same people.
Yeah. I saw Daddy Longlegs at Hale last year, and it was beautiful.
Isn't it so good?
So good. Like, I wish I saw it multiple times, but I only saw it the once.
Yeah, I love it so much. And they have it on Broadway HD, and it's really cool because Megan McGinnis and her husband Adam Halpin are the leads. So it's a real life couple, which is fun.
Oh, see, and I love that, and I love it too because
Yeah.
it's more of the stage productions. You capture that magic that you just don't get in the film.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. I think when I have my surgery and I'm stuck home for like 2-3 months, I'm gonna get Broadway HD.
Well, let me know because I can give you
Yeah.
some tips. I can give you some suggestions. Well, very good. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it and answering
Yeah.
all our questions. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Get to know you better.
Mhm.
But let us know what you think. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. And at Hallmarkies Podcasts. Definitely check all of that out. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. Sure appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group and merch store. So take a look at that. And thanks so much again, Kelly. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye.
Talk to you later.